Live from London, it's Plank of the Week with Mike Graham.
Welcome to Plank of the Week. It's Friday night, and this, of course, is the home of common sense. It's the only place to get the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and lots of judgment. I have got a fantastic panel assembled for you here. I've got Jeremy Kyle, I've got Alex Phillips, I've got Chloe Dobbs, and I've got Mark Wogan. Now, the big story this week has only really been all about the trans movement, the trans issue. So let's kick off, Jeremy, with those funny WhatsApp messages.
So it took 5 years and millions of quid, but finally, the biggest court in the United Kingdom, the Supreme Court, decided, ladies and gentlemen, that a woman can't have a penis.
Brilliant.
I mean, you wonder what the rest of the world's thinking. They're looking at Great Britain and going, what a fantastic leader of the world we are. It's taken us 5 years for that to come to pass. Then you had this Labour government. I'm going to nominate the entirety of the Labour government as Plank of the Week because they sort of, I mean, bear in mind, I think it was March 22, Dreary Starmer told the Times newspaper, a woman, I don't even know what he said, but he basically said a trans woman can be a woman as well.
And worse than that, he said not only is it my opinion, but it's the law.
Now, of course, the minute the Supreme Court came out and said a woman is a biological woman, everybody went, well, what's he going to do? And they were sort of dead silence for days. And then this report came out over the weekend that Culture Minister, Sir Chris Bryant, was behind this WhatsApp group. And stop scowling. Whilst to their faces they were going, well, we stand by the Supreme Court.
Yes.
They were actively, Labour MPs and ministers, doing their best within this WhatsApp group, talking amongst themselves, trying to work out how they can row back against a judgment made by the highest law in the land. We have a Prime Minister who says that the law is everything. Well, it is if you're giving away the Che or silence, or you're doing something from the ECHR, but apparently our own law's rubbish. So we've got an elected government, right, who are going against what the new law is.
And plotting against what the new law is. Angela Eagle was in the group as well, wasn't she?
Well, I don't know who Angela Eagle was. I was watching yesterday. I'd like to share this with you all. Bridget Phillips, who definitely wants Starmer's job, she was responding to Badnight. Man, a woman's not got a penis, man.
Yeah.
There was a woman next to her on the bench in a similar pink jacket to yours. Did you see it?
I did.
Was it her
I was
mother?
on the air with you at the time.
How old was she?
I don't know. It wasn't
103.
I don't know who that was. I mean,
103. But on a serious note, going back to this, right? Total common sense, thank God, what this station's about, what this show's all about. A woman can't have a penis, right? We've had trans activists, we'll talk about that, jumping up and down, they get let off. But the bottom line is we've got an elected government actively saying, on the one hand, that's the Supreme Court, and trying to undo it. How can you trust these buggers in any way?
Well, of course you can't. And through the show, we'll be playing all sorts of clips of the way that they've reacted to it, because they've been terribly confused by all this. Even Keir Starmer.
How is it
like
confusing?
A rabbit in the headlights.
Have you ever met a woman with a penis?
I don't know. I don't think so.
No,
Actually, I was in a bar.
Sober.
I was in a bar in New York once, and they all were. But I didn't know that at the time.
No.
Hell of a night, though, Mike.
As a joke, hell of a night, woke up in the West Village. Now it's been clarified that we're very much able to go forward with new guidance.
So you lied.
You don't need new guidance. There's a woman, there's a bloke. The end.
Do you think he needs guidance on everything he does?
I think he does, because he thinks he needs
conviction.
Legal framework. Everything has to have a legal framework.
Well,
and
Keir
until he
Starmer's
finds
been
one,
absolutely terrified of this ruling with no idea what to do. I mean, his silence spoke absolute volumes.
Well,
So if it really was that straightforward a judgment to him, then he would have said what he's just said straight after the judgment.
And as a
lawyer,
lawyer,
he's been terrified, and now we've got these people plotting on WhatsApp to do whatever they can to work around this this new ruling or to overturn it in some way. And he said he's not going to. He's not going to condemn the plotters. He's just going to stand silent, let them do their thing. And he's terrified because he knows that if he is very much in favour of the Supreme Court ruling, the woke lefties in the Labour Party will come for him like wolves. But similarly, if he sides with the trans activist nutters, then the rest of us are all going to call him a misogynist that doesn't care about women's safety.
True.
So
and we're going to run through
an
awful lot of this over the course of the show. I want to just play one more clip, though, because the Greens don't like this very much either. This is Green MSP, the Greens up in Scotland. You know, the
Rainbow Greens that think that the cash review is
they're really...
Al Green and his wife.
Reverend Al Green.
Reverend Al Green, or Professor Green.
These are the ones that called
Professor Green.
They called the cash review a social murder charter, these lot, the Rainbow Greens.
This is Maggie Chapman, who called the Supreme Court bigots. Check this out.
Not in our name to the bigotry, prejudice and hatred that we see coming from the Supreme Court and from so many other institutions in our society.
Later on, she had to apologise and say she didn't mean to say that the Supreme Court were bigoted. She actually said it. Anyway, listen, over to you, Alex. You've got the trans activists.
Oh, gosh. I mean, now
they talk about the toilet all the time.
Now we've finally decided that we can't have perverts coming into toilets and, autogynophiles listening at the cubicle door while a woman's taking a tinkle. They've decided to go out and stop trashing statues, because that's what you do in the 21st
and peeing
century
in the street.
You disagree with something. The first thing they go for is the suffragette statue.
Yeah.
It's
of Millicent Fawcett.
Yeah, they shouldn't have got the vote, and they shouldn't even be called women.
Yeah.
Damn them.
Can I ask a very quick question? And I've been saying this all week as well. Like you, I mean, hear me out, right? So all these really quite vehement women's rights protesters, right? All these women who have fought for women's rights, all the activists we know. Why is there complete bloody silence to them? Why can't they say, this is a bunch of women saying we don't feel safe? Why are they not sticking up for women? Why do they jump on that bandwagon?
No, but it's literally, do you remember that thing that
Awful.
David Lammy said, well, it's a dinosaur now wanting to hog all the rights to themselves. It's like, excuse me?
Yeah.
It's like, what? It's now become sort of like right-wing and really old-fashioned to want to,
it is
make
mad,
sure
isn't
women
it?
are safe.
Yeah.
It's
But let's have a look at
crazy.
some of these protesters, because this, I think you'll find, is very illustrative of the problem.
One struggle, one fight. Palestine trans rights. One struggle, one fight. Palestine trans rights. One struggle, one fight. Palestine trans rights. One struggle, one fight.
Hold on.
Now, aside from
Hold on a second.
Yeah, go on.
Pick a cause.
Yeah. They can't even count, right? Because they're saying one struggle, one fight. It's actually two.
It's two.
Palestine and
it's
trans
one
rights.
fight, remember?
It's
all
only
that
one.
Hamas lot, they're all cross-dressers.
If you're going to be an activist, if you want to make a difference, pick one.
And also, I do prefer to laugh, but I'm going to say it again. So it's all right, is it, to walk around with a banner going "Murder J.K. Rowling" and the police go, "Oh, we'll look into it."
Yeah.
But then if you go and you riot or you object to things in other instances, you get locked up in 5 minutes.
Yeah,
That's
it's got
appalling as well.
shades of the Hamas support, hasn't it?
Do you
Where
think
they went,
that
oh no,
Hamas
that's
will,
definitely
do you
not.
think that Hamas will take those lot as refugees into Gaza from this, horrible land
Yeah.
in the UK,
Yes.
where we murder trans
Yeah.
people, as they seem to think that we will do now.
But they
after
haven't
this
thrown
ruling.
anyone off building for a while, so I suppose they could take him as cannon fodder.
I would
couldn't they?
love for those lot to all go visit
would
Gaza
really
and see
like-
what it's really
What's
like
the
there.
toilet set up like there?
What, in Hamas? Well, you just go in the tunnel. That's everything's done in the tunnel.
Oh, everything.
Everything. You find
Sewage by-
find a quiet part of the tunnel. Just do your thing.
I mean, men and women can't
Because the
sit
toilets
together
are
in
important.
mosques, but
Yeah.
changing rooms, that's okay, basically.
Yeah.
But,
I don't think
do you
got
know
many
what I'd love
changing
to
rooms in
see?
Gaza, to be
You
fair.
know that Socialist Workers' Party pop up everywhere, their
Yeah.
placards? They seem
Oh,
to
yeah.
print about a gazillion of them overnight.
they got loads.
Can't they just organise one big leftist super protest where you've got the pro-pallies and the trannies all together,
Yeah.
like marching as one?
Right.
I'd actually sit there with, like,
Just Stop
bucket
Oil,
of popcorn, watching
corner,
what happens.
Extinction
water
Rebellion,
cannon.
Greenpeace.
But
They
can
all be there.
you imagine all the beardy weirdies walking alongside
Yeah.
some sort of man in a frock like this? It would
It
just
is
be
mad.
the most beautiful jamboree.
We've got a tweet from India Willoughby here. This is him encouraging trans activists to mass urinate. Good luck to all attending Sunday's mass protests against the UK Supreme Court, removing legal recognition of women who are trans. Thank you to all the cis women turning up. Amazing. Don't forget the synchronised P for me.
This is
Drink
what I'm
plenty
saying.
of
I
water.
said earlier, they're obsessed with doing things with we,
Yeah,
these people.
I
They're
know.
always, it's not just like we want to get into changes, we want to throw we about the place.
Is India any relation to Holly?
Holly Willoughby. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No. I'm
Well,
not sure.
India has very clearly shown with this tweet that case closed, he is a man, because
Yeah.
it is only men that want to mark their territory everywhere by
Yes.
peeing everywhere.
Yes, it's very true. Absolutely.
It's a male thing. No
We're
woman would
old-fashioned.
consider
You used to be able to go to the
peeing
toilets in
around.
pubs where they had the big white... You remember the blackboard and you had a big trough?
Yes.
And you could start before you got there. You could draw
True.
pictures.
As the-
That's where the phrase piss artist came from.
There we are. Thank you very much indeed. Chloe, over to you. A slightly different subject for you.
Yes, slight change of tune.
Yes.
So the pro-Gaza MP Ayoub Khan, he's gone to one of these events where they're promoting this new airport
Oh, yeah.
in Pakistan, which of course it should be the top priority for MPs in this country. And he decided to make a little speech there, saying that the grooming gangs the talk about that is a false right-wing narrative designed to sow hatred and division. It's all fake news.
Yeah.
Of course, there was a huge Pakistani flag in the background. He didn't want to
Yeah, there
upset
was a
any
few
of
flags,
that
weren't there?
community.
There weren't any actual British flags in the background.
Oh, of course not. I mean, I doubt any of them are celebrating St George's Day today, raising the English flag at all. But yeah, it's all fake news, the grooming gangs, apparently. Just all us evil, right-wing bigots making it up to turn people racist against Pakistanis.
Those kids were raped. Well, the party shouldn't be allowed back, should he?
Well, here's the clip.
Is he the elected MP?
He's the MP, yeah.
So when the right-wing media and those that seek to undermine, they are using a false narrative. And there's nothing new in that, because we know what they have ran in the past.
It's not a very diverse panel, that, is it, really?
So Tahir Ali is the Birmingham MP.
Tahir Ali is in that room.
Tahir Ali's in that room. He's the Birmingham MP. He's that concerned about an airport in Kashmir.
It's Kashmir, yeah.
Forget what's going on in Birmingham when there's rats the size of cats and nobody's got their rubbish cleared up. These people, these are our elected officials.
Yeah, but it's a nice trip to Pakistan, isn't it?
Well, Tahir Ali, he has defended himself on this on Twitter by saying that the reason why the airport in Pakistan is such a big priority to him is because it affects his constituents that frequently visit Pakistan. He needs to make sure they're well catered
rubbish.
No. They go back home.
Well, maybe you should take the rubbish with them. Maybe people might get rid of it. You know,
you wouldn't notice it.
No,
to be honest.
but the funny thing is that
have a special
the
bags
reason
to Pakistan.
The reason that they don't actually want to worry about an airport in this country, why they want the airport to be sorted out, is because apparently, for some of his constituents, they have to travel for 3 hours in Pakistan to get to the airport.
Blimey.
I mean, he's ever tried to get from Birmingham to Heathrow in less than 3 hours in a car.
Have you tried to go from the centre of Birmingham to Sparkford Green? That's
in
about
less than
3 hours. There's
Also,
a place in Birmingham called Acox Green.
Yeah.
Although in Pakistan, they do have a culture of hijras.
Pardon?
Hijras, which are men who are women.
Oh, yeah.
So
That's
I've
right,
got a
they're
really
like
good
eunuchs,
idea.
aren't they?
Why can't we make
eunuchs?
Pakistan the safe space?
Yes,
And then we just send them
that's
all
right.
there in that Banya
I
area.
ask
They could be refugees.
again, in the airport, what is the toilet setup?
Yeah, well, exactly right. Other
needs
people
to
have
be right
suggested that we could
we
help
don't want to
them
cause upset, so
we
it
could
needs
help
to
them
be
build
right.
an airport in Pakistan, but it's only got an arrivals building, no departures.
I'll happily let them have a new airport. If that airport it means that we can send more flights sending grooming gang ringleaders back to Pakistan.
Absolutely.
They go.
I actually object, genuinely, as a father of 6, I object to the phrase grooming. They are child rapists.
It's true.
It is unbelievable that that piece of crap can stand there and say, kids whose lives are blighted forever, raped, and the police do nothing because they're concerned about...
The level of what they did.
We've got a certain talk presenter's rant about it. Have a look.
You disgusting, vile, shallow, spineless, malevolent, nasty, little, unpatriotic demon! How dare you?
Poor old Pete Barnes
talking to Peter Barnes? Peter Barnes, I was about to have a coronary. What were you talking about?
Him.
About Ayoub Khan. That was her takedown of Ayoub Khan. Yeah, poor old Peter wasn't looking happy about that, was he? Mr. Mark Wogan, over to you. You've got perhaps the most amazing story of the week.
I mean, it is extraordinary, both from a visual and oral.
Jeremy hasn't seen this.
You haven't seen this?
No.
This is it for the first time.
Unbelievable.
Shall we just play the clip?
I think the clip.
The clip will say it all.
Will say more than it needs
This is
to.
Bridget and Paula Powers, a pair of Australian twins, right? Who were interviewed on Australian television. Check this out.
And one guy, he was up there with our mum. And he went up there and he was coming back down towards us and he goes, run, he's got a gun. And our heart started to pound and I said, oh, Mum, where's Mum? And poor Mum was stuck up there, but apparently our brave Mum, she goes, are you all right? Because he had all blood all over his face. And he goes, I'll shoot you. She goes, hey, I'm here to help.
Unbelievable,
Are
right?
they Siamese?
No.
I'm just asking.
What I want,
Twin
there's two
powers.
things. There's
Amazing.
two things I want to know. Right. One is, did they frame it like that because they're actually joined here?
Yeah.
And also, how shallow is the Gene Puddle in Queensland?
I think it's up near the Northern Territories.
And I've been to Swansea Docks.
And Alex, you wanted to know where they'd got their pyjamas
I quite like
from.
those jams. In fact, I think next plank of the week, Jeremy and I should wear those matching Jimmy jams. And
They're apparently
and we can say
Try
in
and
like
talk
the technical
the same time.
Yes.
And try and get it right.
That's not bad, actually. That is not bad.
Have you two met before?
They are telepathic.
Only in our pyjamas.
They're apparently telepathic twins, is the technical term for them. That they sort of communicate by telepathy. So that each one knows what the other one's about to say.
I think they're proof cousins shouldn't marry.
Yeah, I would say...
yes. I mean, we've all got a story about a cousin, haven't we?
I bet we know somebody who's for that.
But who's the plank here, though? They're not really planks for being able to speak like. I mean, that's pretty amazing to have
it's
that.
Extraordinary. I mean, it is a feat of humanity.
Yeah,
they're fetus.
What sort of fetus? Fetus of humanity.
But I have never seen two twins speak like that. Ever.
No,
they should surely. You've seen three twins.
Yeah,
I
mean, I've known twins who are kind of telepathic.
We know the twins you know.
No. These are twins. Beg your pardon.
Absolutely.
These are twins who are telepathic, but they don't speak to each other. They just kind of know what each other thinks.
Yeah.
Right, coming up, we're going to get one of our favourite BBC presenters on. We've got the NHS back again, and also the nutcase that is Ed Miliband. This is Plank of the Week. Back after this.
Live from London, it's Plank of the Week with Mike Graham.
Welcome back to Plank of the Week. We've already got the first four underway. It's time now for me to welcome back Gary Lineker, who hasn't been on Plank of the Week, I don't think, much this year. He's actually been quite well behaved. Last year he was on it all the time because he kept just sort of poking the bear, didn't he? And it was almost as though he wanted the BBC to react to everything that he said. And first of all, he would have a go at Suella Braverman. Then he would have a go at the 1930s Germany, terrible thing. Then he had his refugee story that he, had the guy that came into his house. Well, finally now the BBC have seen the light and have decided to get rid of him. So he's given an interview about his firing from the BBC, in which he describes how he thinks the BBC were out to get him. And basically, who else to do the interview but Ayoub Khan from the BBC?
Yeah.
I mean, this story is so incestuous, you couldn't make it up. But have a look at what he's got to say for himself.
The BBC tries to appease the people that hate the BBC. The people that always go on about the licence fee and attack the BBC. They worry way too much about that rather than worrying about the people that love the BBC, which is the vast majority, because the BBC is a wonderful institution.
Do you see this as a freedom of speech issue?
Of course it is. Why shouldn't I have an opinion on things? I'm a bloody footballer who's turned into a sports presenter.
Because you work for the BBC and because your free speech is not more important than the BBC's reputation in a time of culture wars and social media for trust and impartiality. And if people associate the BBC with your views on climate change or refugees or whatever it might be, they might not trust the BBC so much in other domains.
Yes, I mean, Amarajan's quite right there. But, I mean, this is the same guy who said that show, the one that was made by the Hamas operatives over in Gaza, which was Nobody's Land.
Voiced by the 13-year-old, the kid.
The 13-year-old son of a Hamas operative. He's saying that it should be shown again because it's a very moving piece of documentary. He's also, funnily enough, I was checking his Twitter out earlier on today, he's not criticised the government for anything ever since it became a Labour government. He's not mentioned.
Very interesting, wouldn't it, to actually, if you were whatever the bloke's name is, to actually say to Lineker, OK, let's put that to one side. Tell me about the government you purport to support, who looked the waspy women straight in the face and said, we'll look after you. Looked farmers straight in the face and said, we'll look after you. Who said the same to pensioners, who have screwed everybody. What do you make of that? The man who cares
and
about
also
everybody.
The man
Why
who
do you care about the people of this country?
And the man who said that Suella Braverman taking people to Rwanda was akin to some kind of Nazi Germany type, deportation scheme. He said nothing about the fact that the Labour government are now talking about taking people to third countries like Serbia or third countries like Bosnia, so they can be processed. He's completely inconsistent, and he's in cahoots with the war criminal Alistair Campbell. And they did this podcast together, and they're all part of the same little horrible cabal of lefties, none of whom ever criticised the Labour government. It's ridiculous, isn't it? So I say good riddance, and I'm looking forward to watching Match of the Day again, because I kind of stopped doing it.
See, now, when I was growing up in my house, we used to have a thing that we referred to as famous person disease.
Yes.
Right? And this happens to people when they've been famous for quite a long time.
Yes.
And nobody has turned around in a long time and gone, might want to shut up.
Given
because
who else was in the house with you, that's quite an interesting point.
Yeah. I mean, but that statement.
Who was in the house with it?
There was some bloke.
Wogan Senior.
Yeah, Wogan Senior.
Are you?
No.
Sorry.
But that bloke there, sitting there, going, why shouldn't I have an opinion? I'm a footballer and a team. That's exactly why.
Yes.
That is exactly why you shouldn't
use your position.
Because really, at the end of the day, I don't know about you, but I mean, I barely care what I say, let alone Gary.
But also, there was a time, wasn't there, Alex, when he was on Twitter all the time, and it was almost like, the BBC would come out and say, well, we've examined whether Gary Lineker is in breach of the...
He was doing it deliberately.
Yeah.
He was trolling them.
He was trolling the BBC, and every time he did it, they let him off the hook and said, we've had a look into it and we've decided that he hasn't breached the regulations because he hasn't written anything down. It's just a tweet.
That man is so narcissistic and egocentric. He's like, well, I had to leave the BBC to save them. Yeah. It's like, no, they wanted you gone.
Yeah, right.
Absolute blight on broadcasting.
Yeah.
Why is he worth so much money anyway? Is he that good a blimmin' presenter? You can talk about
people will tell you that he's a pretty good sports presenter and he does a pretty good job.
Who are these people?
Well,
do you think?
I mean, look, I think Gary Lineker, before all of this, perfectly good host of Match of the Day.
Yeah.
Just
be
that.
Exactly. I
Why
mean, you pointed out he is a football expert.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in football. I don't watch Match of the Day, but I know he's done it for a long time, and that is his area. What annoys me?
He's not an expert on Hamas or Gaza.
Exactly. And you see, for example, people who are famous models, famous singers. You're great at modelling. You're great at singing. You don't need to try and educate the world about who they should vote for and whether you're free Palestine. All of this. You know nothing about it.
I think the reason Lineker is unpopular as he is, he's actually not actually his views. It's the way he pontificates. It's the way he, under the guise of being a sports presenter, is so up himself that he thinks that he's always right. And putting those points that you said to him, he wouldn't answer that.
At the end of the day, this stuff is vanity politics. Isn't it? You know, if you like climate change, it's because you can afford to jet around the world while everyone else has to, try and stump up the cash to pay all the extra fees. You know, if you love refugees, it's because you're not living in a neighbourhood where they're going around groping up your kids.
Yeah.
You know, it's all vanity politics. It's the new way of saying, I've got money and privilege and status, so I can look down my nose at you. And it's always low testosterone men, isn't it? They were the ones sort of banging low.
No, that's a new phrase.
No testosterone. Low testosterone. Do you know what I mean?
You mean older men who might not be able to perform anymore? Is that what you're implying about Mr. Lineker?
Yes.
You know the interesting thing about that? The interesting thing for me about that is, and I'm doing it now, is that body language at the beginning, where he's almost holding him back virtually, like, I am going to speak now, and I'm going to say what Gary wants to say. I wonder if Gary talks about Gary in the
He thinks he's some
sort
of messiah.
Yeah, I bet he does. He's definitely got a messiah complex, no question.
I bet in his house he's got a massive picture of himself.
Yeah, he's probably got a frame.
Naked, but for a ceremonial sword above the fireplace.
He claims to have a refugee. He claims to have a refugee in his house once. Do you remember the letter? Remember the letter that came from the refugee who wrote very good English, it turns out, who actually wrote a letter to Gary Lineker saying, "Dear Mr. Lineker, thank you so much for hosting me at your home. I thought you would have been much more conservative than you turned out to be." And we're all going, there's no way he's got a refugee that wrote that.
Can I, at the risk of being
forget about it. More conservative than you actually turned out to be.
At the risk of being accused online of buttering, your dad, bless his heart, would be, to me, you know me, I've told you this, growing up, he and Parky were like television heroes. Did you ever hear Sateri or Parkinson talking about those sorts of things? No, they were.
You didn't know what they thought
bloody amazing
you
television
never thought what they thought.
And I didn't know what Terry Wogan ever thought about refugees, and I didn't actually, with respect, want to know because I would mesmerise when he was on the telly, like Parkinson, right?
Exactly.
That's it. Shut up, Lineker.
Exactly. Right. Let's talk about the NHS and privilege.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Sherwood Forest Hospitals NHS Foundation
Sherwood Forest.
Sherwood Forest.
It's daylight robbery.
Yeah, it is daylight robbery. They have instigated, and this could catch on. Think Wheel of Fortune. This is a wheel of privilege to help the NHS Trust determine just how lucky or marginalised you are. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Now, it places, ready for this? It categorises people based on characteristics like skin colour, sexuality, wealth and body size. And it's come to the assumption, before you even enter the competition, that thin, white and comfortably off straight people are closest to power, whilst large, dark-skinned people, those in poverty, who are lesbian, transsexual or bisexual, are outer and marginalised and need more help.
Really?
So there you are. There's no point in even taking part.
The wheel of privilege is sort of rainbow-like, isn't it?
Yes.
Is that accidental, do you think?
I don't think it's accidental. I think it's yet another... I mean, this is money, but Sherwood Forest Hospitals NHS Foundation...
Does it spin around, this thing?
I presume it does.
I mean, it does have a little arrow that it stops at.
But I do have some breaking news, and I think Chuck might actually have to bleep this.
Oh, go on.
Do you know where the head office of Sherwood Forest Hospital's NHS Foundation Trust is in Nottinghamshire?
Is it in the Sherwood Forest Service Station?
It's in Newark, which is the only town in England that's an anagram of
Oh, yes.
I'm leaving you with that thought, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, listen.
Welcome to Newark.
This is now, speaking of which, let's talk about Ed Miliband.
Yeah, oh God. Ed Zero, as I decided I'm going to call him. Ed Zero.
Yeah.
First of all, why is it a precondition to be on the Labour front bench to have really terrible, abysmal congestion?
Well, the nasal adenoidal sound.
Is that why they're keen on the congestion charge?
Yeah.
Oh, it's getting worse.
Sorry, I can't give you that one. That was terrible.
I mean, obviously, he's put down his ukulele to take fire at Nigel Farage because Nigel Farage has basically said net zero. What is the point?
Yes.
You know, the UK produces fewer than 1% of emissions. China's like chugging out all these coal-fired power stations using slaves to make all the windwalls and the solar panels that Ed Miliband then buys to wreck our economy.
Although today he's been told he's not going to be able to do that anymore.
I know.
He's going to have to buy the wind farms
Slavery-free net
and the
zero.
solar panels from
How's
somewhere
that
else.
work?
Sometimes nobody else makes them.
No, exactly. But, yeah, I mean, but what is there to say? Ed Zero is just a creepy zealot.
Yes, well, what about the other big story this week, which is one of his aides? He's got a team of 6, apparently, and one of his aides, whose name is very unimportant, so I don't remember it, has racked up 40,000 air miles.
Yeah.
This is the same guy.
Nigel Topping.
Nigel Topping, well done.
My brain is good today.
Well done.
I know.
This is what happens when you don't go to the cider house before you come in.
I know, I'm quiet as normal.
Well,
Are you a
listen.
cider drinker?
I'm from West Country, of course.
Of course she is. Anyway, this guy's been to Barbados, he's been to Abu Dhabi, he went to Azerbaijan, all climate conferences, and then he decided to not only initiate but to sign a document which would force everybody to pay a tax for flying anywhere.
Yeah.
And yet it's all right for him to fly because he's doing good for the world.
He's Nigel Topping.
Nigel Topping. Well, here's a Nigel, proper Nigel, and this is Nigel Farage.
Do you think there's no need for climate change policy at all?
I think we should scrap the net zero targets. Yes, absolutely. I think they're going to make zero difference to the world.
What is your policy for dealing with climate change then?
Well, Nick, you better go and talk to the Chinese about that.
I'm talking to you. What's your policy for reducing climate change?
We make no difference whatsoever. I think we should be mining our own coal that we need for our steelworks. I think we should be self-sufficient, in fact, even an exporter of gas.
If the climate warms, so be it.
We make no difference.
What, not even in leadership, Mr. Farage?
Oh, I've heard that argument.
We can do what we like.
I've heard that argument.
It doesn't make any difference.
I've heard that argument for nearly 3 decades, and it hasn't worked.
That's Nick Robinson on Today programme,
just
right?
Full of it. Man.
Who's just absolutely toes the establishment line. Well, what do you mean you don't want to do anything about the climate change? You know, what does he think we're going to do about the climate change? What does he think's going to happen?
And how unimportant we are compared to the rest of the world that doesn't give a damn.
Right.
Well, there was a guy did a wonderful talk at the Oxford Union. I can't remember his name, but he described that if
Topping.
Not Topping.
No.
No, he was busy flying somewhere. If the UK just fell into the ocean, the impact on climate change would be almost negligible.
Yeah.
But yet we lead and spend billions.
Yes.
And his point was, if we maybe just took one of those billions and gave it to someone clever in this room, we'd probably solve a lot of the issues.
You probably would.
Have you heard,
and nobody can ever answer the question that I always put to them, which is, if we do get to net zero, what happens then?
Right.
And they don't know. Will we have suddenly cleaner air? No. Will we suddenly have cheaper energy? No. Will we somehow have a better life? No.
Government's about to launch some weird projects called ARIA or something, where they're actually going to be like getting boats to spray salt into the clouds, so they like banish the sun, and they're doing all sorts of.
The migrant boats are going to.
The migrant boats are stopping. Well, exactly.
Salt.
They don't use much fuel. Those migrant boats,
No.
you know. But no,
is
they
madness,
are.
isn't it?
The government's doing all sorts of creepy.
You look
things.
at Robinson, and that I don't care. I look at Robinson, and that is everything I hate about the BBC, encapsulated in that sort of
sneering, isn't it?
Sneering, looking down. Go back to your dad and Parkinson's, nothing like that. That's ideology, isn't it?
It is.
You dare to disagree with what we have in a white paper, you horrible piece of
But it's
vermin.
worse than that. It's propaganda.
Yeah.
Because they have not interrogated the story at all.
No.
They've all just sat there and gone, oh, climate change.
Didn't he, Ed Miliband, this week say that he attacked Nigel Farage, and I think the Tories, by saying that They failed to understand that the majority of the British public are absolutely steadfastly behind net zero. I'd love a referendum because I don't think 5% of the British public. They might say, of course, I'm slightly concerned, but actually they go, it's my mortgage, it's the NHS, it's other stuff. Get lost.
I think that the public were behind it initially because you think, oh, doing good stuff for the planet, that sounds great. But now that they're starting to see it actually impact their lives and their energy bills going up and up and up, they're starting to think, well, this is a stupid idea, especially given we only make about 1% of the emissions.
In order to save the planet, would you mind if we attached the top to your plastic bottle of water so that it doesn't come
that
off?
annoys me so much.
People would go, what? Why are you doing that? You know, and it's not even every bottle either. It's ridiculous. And if you were told,
we'll give you £7,500 to change to a less efficient way of heating your house.
Yeah.
And we've just had the IMF call out Rachel Reeves, basically being a liar. Rachel Reeves wants to blame Donald Trump.
How dare you call her that?
Richard III. She wants to blame Donald Trump, everyone external to the UK.
IMF has said she can't do it.
Yeah, for the poor economy. But the IMF had said, no, sorry, this is mostly about domestic factors, the fact that we've had to downgrade the growth forecast, including high energy prices. So that's a difficult
I thought they
one
promised to
deal with.
lower energy prices.
They did. We were going to be all £500 better off. That's what Ed Miliband said.
I've noticed that.
But when Ed Miliband gets asked about why the energy prices have gone up every time he does a media round, he says, well, this is exactly why the fact they're going up shows we desperately need these renewables to bring the energy down. So let's keep going down this road.
He keeps blaming it on fossil fuel prices, despite the fact that gas prices have gone so far down.
And he wants to put cement
cheaper.
down the last gas wells in this country.
Yeah, he does.
And then he goes
Can
on...
you also go down that gas well before the cement, the cement's added with Nigel Topping?
But then he goes on national telly and says that his policies are going to make us less reliant on the Russians for gas. And I'm like, but you're saying we should put cement down our own gas wells. How is that going to make you less reliant on the Russians?
Man's an idiot.
I don't think he's got a single brain cell, I'll be honest.
He's got 2 ovens and 2 kitchens, though. If you remember when he was moaning on about how hard it was to live in this country, and he's got a nanny in 2 kitchens. That's mad Ed Miliband for you. Coming up, Bridgend doesn't often get a mention.
Oh, lovely, is it?
Lovely, yes. Look,
is that at?
Bridgend Council is going to be spoken about, and actually 2 councils. Melksham Council. I used to live not far from Melksham. 20 past. No, it's not. Why am I telling the time? It's Plank of the Week. I'm back after this.
Literally, he's caught in the breakfast show.
Yeah, I've got it. Oh.
Live from London, it's Plank of the Week with Mike Graham.
Welcome back to Plank of the Week. We're almost through to the final furlong, and we've got a couple more to do. And there are 2 councils in this section. Chloe, you've got Melksham Council.
Yes.
Very nice.
Melksham Council have tried to suck the fun out of Easter weekend with their ridiculous health and safety. So a very kind local decided to set up an Easter egg hunt for the kids in this lovely little Wiltshire village and put a load of Easter eggs. Some of them even had 20 quid notes in, very generous. I believe 30 Easter eggs were put out for kids to go and enjoy.
Some old man leaving money around for kids.
But then,
all for health and safety, quick.
Oh no, it wasn't Melksham Council that put the Easter eggs out. That was someone else.
Know that.
Melksham Council, they decided that they would send a council worker out to go and steal all of the Easter eggs and take them away.
Shocking. And
he was seen going. Someone who saw him called him a job's worth and said he was looking for the £20 notes to pocket for himself.
Unbelievable.
And apparently, these Easter eggs that have been put out, they might be unsafe. Maybe someone decided to put poisonous Easter eggs out for the kids. So
it is Melksham.
The council, they've now, after this backlash, they have now put the Easter eggs back out and apologised and said, we've now tested the eggs. We've done a health and safety test on the eggs.
They've opened them all
to
up.
make sure they're not poisonous, and we've now put them back out. Sorry for any inconvenience.
Have you been to Melksham? And also, your council tax will go up this year.
Yeah.
Yes.
It will.
That's why they need all that extra money,
And
because
also,
they need
it's not
a
Easter
team
anymore,
to test.
The kids
the
aren't
Easter
looking
egg
for Easter
team.
eggs.
Yeah.
We've got the new Easter egg team.
Yeah.
It's all like,
well done,
it's like
Melksham
GB
Council.
Energy. Do they exist? What's their job?
Yeah, well, apparently, actually, we forgot to mention Jürgen. We were talking about Ed Miliband because he's had some bad news this week.
Jürgen, has he?
Well, yeah, because, unfortunately, he was hoping for the big Chinese, cash flow scenario because they were going to buy all those solar
Easter
panels.
Eggs.
Yeah, not Easter eggs.
No.
So now he didn't know what to do because GB Energy was a project for them, and now they're not going to be allowed to do it. So
there could be a
back to the
vacancy
drawing board. It's back to the drawing board for Jürgen.
There is a vacancy at Real Madrid.
He just has to drive around the M25 again now and pretend to his wife that he's actually gone to an office, to do some work for the day.
Why doesn't he go back to Germany?
Well, he's got to save the planet by being the head of GB
Melksham
Energy.
News. I can't tell you a story about Melksham because I get into trouble.
Yeah, I imagined you would. I nearly ended up editing a newspaper that would
I'll
have
tell you what,
covered...
my daughter got married in Melksham and I stood up. I thought it was quite amusing. I went like that. I waved my hand. I said, I'm not actually just waving at you. I'm wanting you to know what it looks like to have 5 fingers. And nobody laughed at all in the entire room.
You're lucky the council didn't come and arrest you. Mark,
you've got... Force feed you poisoned Easter eggs.
Poisoned Easter eggs. You've got Bridgend Council, look you.
Oh, this story. Are we sitting comfortably?
Yes, let our begin.
Because that won't last.
Yeah.
This one.
This is great.
So,
I've seen this one.
It's unbelievable.
Already, you haven't.
So the Bridgend County Council got a company that describes themselves here. I want to get this right. They were provided by the council's domestic abuse service, ASIA. Now, I don't know, is that...
ASIA?
Yeah.
Is that spelled with 2 S's?
Yes. A PowerPoint that instructed 14-year-old boys on the correct way in which to choke someone during sex.
Is this the chicken or the person?
No, not the chicken. It's like
it's a different company that does that.
That reminds me of one of my favourite jokes.
It's just you
burst in on someone and you're like, does that thing owe you money? But anyway, the idea that, you know, you spend ages, if you are a responsible parent, educating your son on how to be a proper human being.
Yeah.
He goes to school and they go, right, now, if you are going to choke somebody, this is how you should do it safely.
Yeah.
You should ask for permission.
Yes.
What about safe word?
Right.
Or safe noise, like... You know, but I mean, the whole principle of it is so wrong. How did that end up?
How are they even talking about this?
Education.
14-year-old boys.
You know, the thing is, to keep the sheep still in Wales, you've got to hold it by the neck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because sales of wellies have gone down, haven't they? But I think this is part of that whole sort of backlash to adolescence. Oh, no, we need to educate properly and do all of this.
Cover all areas, basically.
Yeah, to cover all areas.
Education.
Now, look. Now, why are we living in an age where you have to educate a 14-year-old about choking?
Yeah.
Right? And yes, that is down to pornography and nothing else. So police the pornography.
Yeah.
You know, stop that being so readily available in a way that twists people.
But also, what's it got to do with the council at the end of the day?
Well, what is a
really is a
domestic
nanny
abuse
state,
service?
Yeah.
Are they stopping it or providing it?
Yeah, well, there might be 14-year-old boys who never thought of it before. And suddenly they go, I'll come home and you go, you know what Dad told me at school today, Dad? He said, if I'm going to chalk someone, then
I should probably ask their permission.
Is that all right?
Is it all right if I give you a quick throttle?
Yeah. I mean... The mind boggles. What else are they teaching them?
The eyes.
You also hear horror stories, you know, some in America and I think some here as well, of primary school kids in the lessons where they're being taught that, you know, gender's all a rainbow and you can be a penguin, you can be whatever you want, right? They're also like they're literally teaching primary school kids how to masturbate, and there are all these books as well with like bondage and like how to masturbate for like literally little kids.
Blimey.
And I'm like, why are you teaching them this? They're not even hit puberty yet. Just teach them their times tables.
That'd be good. A bit of history, maybe, geography.
Actually, a young boy. Learn your times table. Stop choking the chicken. It doesn't work.
Exactly right. Anyway, listen, we're nearly at the end of the show. I'm going to come back with my final nomination. I don't think anybody's going to be surprised who it is. And of course, it'll probably be the winner as well. This is Plank of the Week.
Live from London, it's Plank of the Week with Mike Graham.
We've already talked about the state of the Labour Party. Welcome back to Plank of the Week, by the way. It's got to be Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer, the man who, as you said earlier in the show, only 3 years ago said that a trans woman was indeed a woman.
Yep.
And not only did he say that was his opinion, he said it was also the law.
Yep.
He's now decided that that's not his opinion, even though he hasn't actually quite said the words. Have a look at him trying to explain to ITV News why he thought a woman now can only be a biological woman.
Look, I think the Supreme Court has answered that question.
So you
and
don't
I
believe
think
a trans woman is a woman?
Look, a woman is an adult female, and the court has made that absolutely clear. I actually welcome the judgment because I think it gives real clarity.
He's looking for clarity again. He hasn't answered the question. She asked him what his
he
opinion.
He looks absolutely like a rabbit.
He hasn't given a clear answer.
He can't. No,
sure.
because he's been asked that question several times since that interview. Because he didn't speak on it for 6 days for a start, and it wasn't until the people were like, "Oh, he's on holiday." Well, nobody saw him on holiday. Nobody knows where he went. He claimed that he flew commercially somewhere, and I would guarantee you, if he was in Southern Europe, you would be seen on a plane. Isn't that, you can't unless you're on a private plane or a huge plane where you can get smuggled into first class. You can't get smuggled on an EasyJet flight or a Ryanair flight,
or Lord Ali,
or a British. Yeah, exactly. You just can't. So he says he knows that, but he was asked, and we'll show you in a minute what happened at Prime Minister's Questions this week. But he was asked, well, were you wrong when you said that before? And he won't answer that either. And
hides behind the law, doesn't he?
And he looks so uncomfortable when he talks about it. And he has single-handedly, I think, completely ruined a lot of people's lives. And in fact, Kemi Badenoch is now saying not only should he apologise to Rosie Duffield, who's a Labour MP.
What an absolutely outstanding person.
What a
Rosie
fantastic,
Duffield is.
And she was hounded out of the Labour Party.
Yes,
she had to
she
get sort of police protection at one point a few years
hung
ago
her, man.
when she went to a Labour Party conference and she was shouted down. She was threatened with death, all sorts of horrible violence.
Dead right. She's been the whole way.
Yeah, and you should have seen her face in Prime Minister's Questions. But here he is getting roasted by Kemi Badenoch, who actually had a pretty good week.
He doesn't have the balls. The Prime Minister only tells people what they want to hear. He only tells people what they want to hear. He is a weather vane who twists in the wind. He cheered an ideology that denied safe spaces to women and girls because he thought it was cool to do so. He hounded a brave female MP out of his party for telling the truth he accepts now. And now he is hiding behind the Supreme Court judgment. And isn't that because he doesn't know what he actually believes?
I can only assume that sounded better when she did it in the mirror earlier on. But the truth is, it doesn't really matter what the Leader of the Opposition says, because nobody believes, none of them, that she's going to lead them into the next election anyway. It's going to be the shadow justice. He's away plotting. That's why he's not here today, Mr. Speaker. And the member for Clacton fighting over the bones of the Tory party. And they think Reform are going to give them their votes without changing their policy. Absolutely no way. The member for Clacton's going to do what he always does, eat the Tory party for breakfast.
I mean, what an
Tell
absolute...
He's terrified of
He's
Nigel
terrified
Farage,
of Nigel Farage. He's
Yeah.
terrified of this issue. He's terrified of the trans debate. He doesn't want to say a trans woman is not a woman. He's just unbelievably hopeless.
In that as well.
I think this might kill him off,
But what was key about that was how confident and relaxed did Farage look sitting in that bed?
Absolutely.
I mean,
if the Prime Minister,
keep talking about.
If the Prime Minister with 471 seats is acknowledging a guy that's got 4 seats because he makes more noise than all of them put together, that tells me that I think that league table this week was about them saying we're worried about reform. I genuinely.
The thing is, when you look around that Parliament, they're just so diabolically thick.
Yeah.
All of them.
They really
Nigel
are.
Farage must feel like he's turned up to compete in a spelling bee.
We'd be
with a
all
load
right
of
in there,
toddlers.
you and me. Oi,
Do you
we'd
know
be
what
all
I
right
mean?
in there, you and me. We'd be intelligent. wouldn't
We could deliver our speech
speeches
together at the dispatch box at the same time.
Very,
I
very
find that a
creepy.
little bit
It's quite weird. It's quite weird. And that's the other thing, right? Is that all of the people behind Keir Starmer hate him. They hate him either because they believe that trans women are in fact women and that he should have stood up for them, or they hate him because he's got them into this mess in the first place.
I always think it's really interesting, the Labour Party, on a serious note, and it happened with Blair. To be elected as a Labour Prime Minister, you have to move to the centre.
Yeah.
You have to not just be, in the old days, the working man, not the working man. You can see Phillips yesterday loathes the ground he walks on.
Oh, yeah.
Because the ideology is alive and really well in the Labour Party. He got them elected. They'll knife him at some
Yeah.
point.
Oh,
I'm
they
completely
will.
with you. All these people
They
are
will.
They will get rid of
Totally.
him. And they will not be re-elected.
No.
And the next debate is, does Jenrick rise and unite with Farage? I don't know, but there is no way. I think the British public will vote these liars back. I can't see it in a million years.
No chance. And I mean, here's the thing. Every single current cabinet minister is on record as saying a trans woman is a woman. And now they've all been told to say the complete opposite. Wes Streeting came out this week and said a trans woman is definitely not a woman. And he's going to now get the NHS to change everything. Change everything. You know, the whole thing is a complete mess.
You've got to keep Wes busy. Because otherwise he's got nothing to do.
Yeah, well, there is that. Very, very true.
He's expected. There's been a new MRP poll come out that's pretty shocking, which not only says that Reform will get the most seats, 180 versus 165
if there was an election this week,
Conservatives and Labour. And it says Wes will be unseated by Pro-Gaza Independent, and also 9 ministers will be unseated by Reform. So they're terrified of Nigel Farage, even though he's, as Jeremy says, he's only got 4 seats and he's tiny in that
Tries to be the next Chancellor of the United Kingdom, you watch.
It could be
a money clip.
massive swing to Reform. Absolutely right.
This is the lawyer, and that's the problem. It's like, it's not the truth until you've got evidence.
Yes,
the truth, and then I will backtrack every single time.
Well, I would say evidence that you're not a man is that you don't have a penis. Evidence that you're a woman is that you don't have a penis.
Plot twist is the ECHR.
I don't know, I've only got 1 ball, so I'm completely irrelevant.
I mean, you may fall through the cracks on this
Back where
one.
we started.
Oh, you think that's funny? I said I've no idea. I've only got 1 ball, so I can't have an opinion on this. I'm halfway to being a woman.
Well, you can have half an opinion.
I'll have half an
Does that make you a low testosterone male?
Does that make you non-binary?
No, it just used to make me massively uncomfortable.
Well, maybe it makes it binary, actually.
I had a false one put in. Do you know this? You've asked, I'll tell you, and it was too heavy. And for the first 3 weeks after the operation, I couldn't walk.
I've had that problem.
Yeah.
I kept walking in circles. It was terrible to watch.
Shocking.
Terrible.
Also, going through the metal detector as well.
Not sure how we got on
this. Now, listen, we've almost out of time, so I've got to pick the winner.
I think you've got to change the plank. No, you've got to change it this week. I think Plank of the Week should be a laugh this week.
Right.
There has not been, in the 6 months I've been in the show, a better laugh than those twins. Come on.
But they're not planks, though.
They're not planks.
But they're not planks. I mean,
why'd you put it on then?
Because it's funny.
Well, let's make it a funny
Remember,
one.
it's a funny show, remember? You got to remember it's a funny show.
I'm sorry, I'm going. I'm not.
Yeah,
no. You misogynistic old man.
Stop it.
No.
Stop it. Let's have another look at the twins then. I don't know who the plank is, though.
Run. He's got a gun. And our heart started to pound, and I said, "Oh, Mum, where's Mum?" And poor Mum was stuck up there, but apparently our brave Mum, she goes, "Are you all right?" Because he had all blood all over his face. And he goes, "I'll shoot you." She goes, "Hey, I'm here to help."
I'd love them.
Okay.
Just because they're fantastic.
Do the bloke that attacked their mother as the plank. That's the funniest thing I have seen
the carjacker.
since Kevs O'Sullivan.
The carjacker, the man who's responsible for outing Bridget and Paula Powers as the greatest Australian telepathic twins of all time.
Yes.
Okay, we'll give it to him then. The carjacker who tried to get Bridget and Paula Powers' mum with a gun.
With a gun.
You're absolute plank. Thank you very much indeed, Jeremy Kyle, Alex Phillips, Chloe Dobbs and Mark Wogan, of course, as well. We'll be back same time next week with more plankery.
Run, he's got a gun.